that occasionally wander into China, and that species is also very very much pressured by the trade, by poaching.
Are there now laws in China to prohibit or attempt to at least regulate the poaching? So are there anti-poaching laws and other laws to restrict trade of illegal parts of tigers?
There are, China's wildlife protection law prohibits poaching of tigers and many endangered species in the wild. However, China's policy is very much promoting trade. So under the policy, there are a few, well, there are a lot of farming operations that are allowed in China, including tiger farming. Some of the largest tiger farms exist in China. In total, there are over 6,000 tigers in the various farms versus fewer than 30 tigers in the wild.
What are the tigers being farmed or bred for? Specifically, what's going to happen to those tigers?
Supposedly, when China allowed these tiger farms to be set up, they were set up basically with the cover to say, with the excuse to say these tigers are bred for releasing them into the wild. But what actually happened, that these tigers are speed bred. They are bred, so the breeding strategy for these tigers on the farms is very different from breeding strategy for wild tigers. In the wild, in order to preserve diversity, you know, the genetic diversity, you wouldn't breed so frequently.
Right.
But on the farms, in order to produce the maximum number of tigers, they breed them very quickly. The tiger, after a female breed, you know, within 3 months, that cub is taken away from the mother, so the female tiger will get into breeding again. So what happens is the diversity is very, it got very messy and compromised. And the tigers are not only breeding within, you know, just with other tigers, these farms also breed tigers with lions. So what happens is, you know, these monster ligers that has no use ever in conservation. And tigers cannot, the tigers on the farms, bred on the farms, can never be released into the wild.
And I would surmise that the conditions they're kept on in the farm are not ideal conditions for a tiger.
No, they're not. And also they are, a lot of the tigers are starved, and in order for them to engage in shows, by shows I mean they would sell tourists prey, tiger prey. So tourists can buy a chicken, buy a cow,
mercy.
Release into the enclosure for the tiger to pounce onto the prey. And in the wild, a tiger would hunt individually by itself.
Yes.
But in these farms, you can see a group of tiger, 20, 30 tiger pouncing on one cow or chasing one chicken. So these are, many of the farms also are wildlife parks, safari parks. So what they do is they chain tigers to the floor and pose pictures with tourists. So these tigers live a very miserable life on the farm, and then when they die or when they are killed, these farms are also selling the tiger parts in wine. And in the name of traditional medicine, one of the laws that China had passed, it wasn't a law, but it was a state council, China's highest level of government body. In 1993, responding to international pressure to protect tigers, and tigers are already listed in CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, on Appendix 1, so international trade is banned. So in 1993, China's State Council issued a notice banning tiger bone and rhino horn use in traditional Chinese medicine. And after that ban, the government actually started a lot of education campaigns within the TCM medicine community to urge them not to use tiger bone and rhino horn in medicine. So what had happened is the official TCM community have moved away from using tiger bone in medicine. But these tiger farms, they are basically, they use tiger bone to produce a type of wine, and then they call it for medicinal use.
Boy.
And
Sure.
then they are using people's, you know, in a lot of older people's, in their mind,
Yeah.
tiger bone has, you know, medicinal powers, and so they are prying on those type of people and they who treasure tiger bone in medicine and who still want to use it.
As we sit here at the international headquarters, it's easy to cast a stone on what's going on in China and other countries. But here in the United States, there are also significant tiger problems and, of course, other endangered species significant problems as well. Do you have any commentary on the link between what's going on in China with respect to the tigers and some of the abuse of tigers here in the United States?
Indeed, you know, tiger crisis, it didn't get to this point if everybody was aware that, you know, tigers need to be protected, and wild tigers belong in Asia, in the wild, in their natural forests. And in fact, in the US, the number of tigers that are kept in captivity, the number is even higher than those that are on China's tiger farms. And tiger is not even an indigenous species on this continent. So for the people for the U.S. government and for the people in the U.S., they need to be aware of, if they really care about tigers, then we need to have stronger laws. We need to have stronger position to keep tigers in the wild, to regulate, make sure that the tigers in captivity in this country do not go into illegal trade, and which stimulate a market demand, which fuels poaching of tigers in the wild.
Nathan Hirschler is an attorney and international operations manager with IFAR, the International Fund for Animal Welfare. Prior to joining IFAR in 2008, he graduated from American University, Washington College of Law, where he focused on environmental and animal law. Nathan has co-chaired his Student Animal Legal Defense Fund Law School chapter. He's lectured on animal law issues and volunteered with a number of animal advocacy groups.
Can you tell me how pervasive the captive tiger problem is here in the U.S.?
The problem is pretty widespread. There's been a number of advancements over the past 15 to 20 years or so, most recently with the passage of the Captive Wildlife Safety Act in 2003. After that came into effect, there was a ban on interstate transport on a number of big cat species defined as prohibited wildlife species under that act. It protects species that, including lions and cougars, which weren't necessarily already protected under federal law, but that became so because of that act and remained only protected under federal law because of that act. That being said, there are still a substantial number of big cats in captivity in the United States, both in private hands, kept as pets, and also in sort of corporate type of farms that are using these animals for for commercial activities like bringing them to malls where they ask people to take photos with like big cats as part of activities that will bring folks into malls.
Where does one go about purchasing a tiger?
It's not as simple as going to a local pet store or that, but there are a number of states where private ownership of big cats is just not prohibited in the United States. It's legal, or it's legal with a permit. The number of states have declined where that's allowed in the last number of years, but you can still go to some of these states where the private ownership is allowed. Or you can find them on the internet. The simple Google search away, you can purchase your own big cat.
Why would states allow this?
There's a substantial amount of money in it in some instances. States sometimes allow it because they think of it as a private ownership issue. They don't like to see government getting involved in the private ownership of property. They think that it's somebody's right to own wildlife. It's hard to speculate on a state-to-state basis. There are a number of different reasons why they would do it. But I think that a lot of the times it's really just inertia. I think that they don't see it as a substantial problem in their states, so there's not a lot of effort being put into changing the way that they actually regulate the ownership of big cats.
Other than the obvious danger of a tiger escaping and harming someone, are there other things to worry about?
Yeah, so there's a number of issues. I mean, there's animal welfare issues. A number of these cats are being kept in horribly tight confinement, spaces, small cages that are the equivalent of dog cages that you see you only will transport your dog for a couple hours in one of these things just to keep them safe. But these tigers are living their entire lives in equally small and cramped behavior. So there's massive animal welfare problems with that. There's also issues of public safety. When you're dealing with these private owners of big cats, there's always the possibility of maulings, there's the possibility of escapes. And then there's also international conservation issues. We suspect, although we don't have any proof at this stage, that a number of these animals are actually being put into international and domestic wildlife trade for use in either traditional Asian markets as medicines, where the tiger in particular, tiger bone wine, is thought to increase both virility and strength in its drinkers. And there's an increasing demand for that that's putting extreme pressures on wild populations of tigers, but we also suspect maybe putting pressures on domestic farmed populations. And the same holds true for other species of big cats, lions, for example, that are sometimes used as replacement products for those tigers when they become more scarce. There are also additional threats on the ground to a number of these species, poaching in particular, or trophy hunting for species like lions, where the import of those trophies is not actually prohibited at this time in the United States.
What are some challenges that we face?
Probably the number one challenge is the fact that people don't think of this as a major problem. The people who are out there trying to interact with these animals, the cubs that you're allowed to play with at these shopping malls, for example, they like animals, they love animals, they want to be near these animals, and that's really the cause for them being willing to pay these $10, $20 for a photo opportunity with them. So to some extent, one of the biggest challenges is overcoming the public awareness of what the actual side effects of having these cubs in malls is actually going to be. We also have challenges in Congress, of course. As everybody knows right now, there's huge impasses over the budget, over the role of federal government implementing wildlife reforms, and overcoming that just on a federal law basis is a substantial challenge for anybody trying to do the type of work that our organization does.
Ian Robinson is a veterinarian and IFAW's Emergency Relief Program Director. He began his career in general veterinary practice in the UK, but for the past 15 years he has worked full-time in animal welfare. Ian worked first with the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, where he helped open the largest wildlife rehabilitation hospital in Europe, treating over 6,000 wildlife casualties per year from over 200 different species, from bats to badgers to sparrows to seabirds to seals and all kinds of animals. Ian joined IFAR in 2003, and he has helped animals around the world, including responding to emergencies in many foreign countries as well as in the United States.
But it's interesting actually, because my first job really when I first started with IFAR was a tiger